Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. This is Sebastian speaking, and today we'll continue to speak about spectrum analyzer because sometimes you need for EMC tests, but also for such channel attacks to use some spectrum analyzer. And if you use a spectrum analyzer, it's good to look at some properties of a signal, particularly if you want, for example, to go in depth into that. Generally, you would probably use your own tool, for example, after retrieving the capture. But if some features already exist in order to look at these properties, it's probably better at the first sight. So like that, you can directly look into that just before analyzing the raw capture for that. And beyond such channel attacks and also EMC tests, the use of a spectrum analyzer can be very helpful in order to debug what is going on with your transmitter. So let's say that, for example, here, I want to transmit something with this graph, as you can see here, on 68 megahertz. I can also see that here on the screen with the peak search directly. So if I'm just looking at this, for example, I can go to mode, attack spectrum, and I can maybe inspect what is actually transmitted in there. Also, I can go a little bit deeper and look at the digital demodulation and see that this signal is a QPSK signal where we can also see some noise also around showing. So this is actually what you can see with your transmitter, and that allows you to then debug what is going on if something is not transmitting well. And thanks to our partner Versys and also Harogic, we are able to test it on our PXE-200s that we own. And you will see it's very awesome because you may probably guess that using digital demodulation in tablets, it will be a mess because you have a lot of noise, etc. But you will see that the PXE-200 is well made, and also the digital demodulation are well working. Of course, if you want, for example, to have less noise as possible, probably using, for example, an external SA, it's always better. But you can be amazed with the PXE-200. And also, I prefer also to have it on the PXE-200 because I don't have the tool directly. And if I want to move, for example, with the tablet, I want to directly look at the properties of the signal instead of using a capture and put the capture in the laptop, for example, or in any computer. So yeah, basically, we'll test that, and also I will compare it with the BB60D with Spike. So you will also see that some features are still missing, but there was like a lot of improvement since my last video from Harogic. All right, let's go. And to do so, to do side channel attacks, but also EMC tests and also other measurements, here are the devices that I consider the most. For example, you can see on the left the QC908A that is very, very sensitive for 100 kHz to 10.8 GHz. So this is the device that I consider the most. Then there are two devices that I really like the Harogic, which is very performant, has a very, very quick sweep speed, and it's very, very well made. If you have watched my last video about Harogic, you will be amazed and about the efficiency. For the same range of price, you have the BB60D. So SignalHound is a little bit more expensive, but what I really like with SignalHound is also the software. They have very good products and a very good software, which is free for now. Of course, this year, or maybe before, in the late 2024, they decided also to skip one of the feature and put it with a license, with a 200K license per year. So yeah, of course, I hope Spike will not be subject to an entire license. All the features will not be licensed at this price, because at the end, I will probably just stop using it. But yeah, you will see that actually Harogic is improving a lot. Since our last video also, the software has improved a lot because they included, a tablet mode even for a computer. but also we implemented some new tools inside SAStudio4. So you don't need to use a capture or use the API with your tool in order to inspect some properties. You can already use some features that are existing. And if they exist, you can use directly them on SAStudio4. You probably also remember that in here I had also the Harogic device. I mean, that was the Spectrum V6, but I had to refund it because the dynamic range was not right, and also it gets very noisy because you have external noise and also internal noise. So yeah, at the end, I could also listen to Wi-Fi signal and also some other signal around with, I mean, an input load of 15 ohm. So it was, probably not the best device to actually use it for EMC test and also such an attacks. But maybe a Harogic device for very large bandwidth and also to do just like very quick Wi-Fi test could be like very good. But for our purpose, for security, I prefer a tool that has a high dynamic range and don't get like too much noise. Also, for our test, I will use the PXE-200 against the generator from SignalHound, which is the VSG60D, which allows me, for example, to generate a signal from 50 megahertz to 6 gigahertz. So like that, I would just like use one of the frequency and see it, and then use the digital demodulation feature from Harogic in order to see how the PXE-200 and also this feature is handling things. And for the test, I will use AirSwift, which is a toolbox that also includes a lot of tools and especially the VSG60D tool. So let's also run it. I will use AirSwift up key in here. I will execute an already made container, and then up I will just bring it in here like that. Up. So it will be our F tools. Okay, this is already here, and VSG60D. All right, we'll just bring up the screen there like that. Could be better. And yeah, I will also need to connect the device to my computer. So let's do that. All right, so now I can actually inject some modulations in here. So yeah, basically, I really like, for example, to do like digital mode, but also you can choose to do Bluetooth LE, I mean some Wi-Fi here, technique of modulation here, LTE and so on. Yeah, here it only works with Windows. So yeah, some of the mods are also only working with Windows, but don't worry. I mean, we'll use first the digital demodulation like that as such. So now we are just checking. We are using a frequency of 1 gigahertz in here. We can just do like RF on, mod on, and also we're using QPS key. So we just define also the symbols that we want to send, like these ones. Perfect. So 0 to 3, like that. So the symbols 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, etc. using those constellations. So thereafter, I mean, the ref is on, mod on. So then we can also see what is happening in there. So for example, if I'm just bringing up things in here, you can probably see also that, I mean, something is happening. Of course, yeah, if you go to, and I will then zoom on it, but first, if you want to go to peak search, you will see a peak on 1 gigahertz frequency. So then I can go to digital demodulation. I can probably go to modulation, which is QPS key like that, and go and use also the right sample rate. Yeah, now it is enabled. Yeah, sorry. I was actually also missing here this little option. Yeah, sometimes if this little option is actually not enabled, I mean, you can mess things up. But here you can see, I mean, the QPSK is working properly. Also, you may probably also guess that, I mean, I will also zoom on it, but yeah, you have the constellation, you have the FFT, you have the summary, and you have the eye. Now let's zoom on it. So using a USB-C and a HDMI, I could actually bring up the screen in here. Unfortunately, I'm a little bit dumb about the resolution, so I couldn't actually bring what is in the bottom. So you would probably not see the range of frequency on which I'm sweeping, but you will be able to see the digital demodulation in working. So first, for example, you may see here the demodulation. We will just like go to 1 MSSPS like that, and also say, hey, this is a QPSP signal. So then I will use the computer, my computer here, to also generate a signal. So here I'm just now showing you the signal that I'm generating, a QPSK signal here. So this is nicely working. Then I will actually change it to something else. I will probably just like go forward and use maybe 8 PSK like that. Let's go. So this is now showing you 8 PSK signal. So we'll have to also move in here to PSK-A. And as you can see, still here, probably I may boost things with an external clock in here. So maybe I can just like decrease a bit the frequency error in here. But first, let's see, you have the eye diagram in here also showing. So for the first test, I actually choose the PBSK signal. I could actually also use 2FSK signal in here, but yeah, we'll probably see it also later. But here in the constellation map, you can see the two symbols showing, like the the 0 here and the 1 on the right. So at -1, you have a 0, and at +1, you have a 1. You have also, an FFT showing here. You can also, for example, use it if you want, for example, in order to see, for example, how large is the bandwidth. So this is one of the tools that you may also use to inspect the signal, as well as also the FFT. You may also look at the summary. The summary is quite good because it shows you, for example, the bits that have been demodulated, but also the errors. So like that, you may also inspect what is going on with your signal or with your generator, also with the receiver, because the problems can be happening everywhere. Here we can see also that the frequency error is quite high in here. And as you know, I'm not using for the moment any reference clock in here. So also, as we are using, for example, tablets, we may also have some errors generated by that. But yeah, some other things that we may inspect is the eye, because the eye pattern is another tool that may also show us, the pattern of the signal that we are using. So like that, we may inspect, which kind of frequency we are facing in, but also if there's any issue, thanks also with the shape of the eye. We can perform the same test with a 2FSK signal like that. For example, just using the mode type. I can also maybe just use also a 2SK here. Wait a second. 2SK signal like that, and precise it on the mode type like that. Wait a second. SK2 like that. So yeah, here's the shape. Up. I would probably just like bring up also the eye like that. So you may also see that completely. And yeah, there's like many things that you can do. And if, for example, I want to look at, inspect some much more complex modulation like the QPSK and even QAM, I can also make that so, like that. So this is the QPSK signal here, like that. You can also have the QAM 16 here. Up, I will change it here. QAM 16 here, perfect. This is nice. And then also the QAM 64 here. QAM 64 like that. This is wonderful, right? So you see also the eye pattern of that. This is amazing. And so I can actually do that with just the tablet, directly on the tablet, without having to just bring, make it with the raw capture and analyze it with my own tool. I can just like move on with the tablet and inspect to the signal properties like that. So yeah, it's quite amazing. So it's a very, very good improvement for SAStudio4. And as you remember, SAStudio was not in the same shape before. It was very basic at the beginning, and today it has progressed like a lot. So I imagine that features are still a little bit limited in here. This is not an issue, but I think that many other modulation will also be present. I think that's also an improvement for Harogic will be fine to do. It is like SignalHound did, is that you can, with SignalHound, you can also, create your own demodulator. So that means that you can map the samples yourself and then try to acquire that yourself. So like that, it will make also the tool very flexible. So yeah, if you hear me, Harogic, this is also an improvement that could be like not expected right now, but if in the future you do so, I mean, that will be perfect. All right, so here I'm generating some pools, and I'm expecting to have possible pools of a width of 40 microseconds and a period of 500 microseconds. So that means that a duty cycle of 8%, for example, here. So let's just like enable it and see. Here we can see the pulses, the duty cycle that we are expecting. So that's kind of nice because, it's for a tool like that, I mean, a very, very compact tool and also affordable. I mean, much more, accessible. It is a nice feature to have. Clearly. So I'm very honest, guys. I mean, I'm very, very impressed by, all the improvements Harogic made on the SAStudio4. Because before you had to use the API, but they also saw that a lot of people want to directly use the software. So they made also a lot of improvement just with a year. This is amazing. So I expect that maybe the software will beat the other software, and especially the Spike software for SignalHound. But let's see what is actually missing on SAStudio4 for the moment compared to Spike, for example. So still using AirSwift, I will now use the spectrum analyzer, which is on here, not here, but analyzer Spike like that. And I will actually make an alias for this tool also to directly be able to join it, to display it. So now we can bring now up the screen there. I can also just show a spectrogram, so like that we have everything and see. Still, it's very clear. Still, the Spike software is quite nice for measurements, and you can see that on the analysis mode you have digital modulation analysis. So as we are actually using the QAM64 modulation, let's probably just use it here. We have also to make sure that the frequency is the good one, like that. And as you can see, we're able to see, for example, all the bits in here. So we have exactly pretty the same view. We have the eye diagram, the constellation plot, the spectrum plot displaying you the FFT. And we have the AVM summary. From my point of view, what is actually good with this view on the EVM summary is also that you have the average and the peak, values. You don't have a real-time value. The problem is that with Harogic, for now, you have real-time value, so you don't know exactly what is the average value. So it's kind of difficult to read for the moment. But I think that this is an improvement for Harogic to do, and I think that also they will do the improvement very quickly because it is just like another column to make with average and peak. I would probably also maybe display the minimum, maximum, average, values. So like that, you have all the information. And so like that, as you can see here in SignalHound, with the average value, you have also the ability to see, for example, what's the FREC error in here. And so the average FREC error is 50 errors here. So yeah, for a device that is a little bit more external to a computer, for a device that actually is not directly binded to a computer and the tablet, the frequency error also appears a little bit lower than the tablet itself. But I may show you another video where, also the devices are synchronized with the clock, where the frequency error with Harogic is lesser than that. On Spike, you have also QAM64, you have also QAM256. But what is also cool is that you can, if you want, you can customize your own modulation. So that like that, it may also give you the ability and the flexibility to demodulate much more signals than the ones that are implemented. So that means that if, for example, you know that there are some symbols in the constellation, you can also use this, create your own modulation. For example, for BPSK, you have a symbol 0 and 1 that are shown in here on the real part between -1 and 1. So -1 and 1. Like that, you may also just mess a bit things like that. For example, let's say that on the imaginary part, you want also to play with it. You can, for example, just like say, hey, let's go to pi divided by 4, right? Something also cool with, SignalHound, Spike from SignalHound, is that in the analyze mode, you can look at the VLAN, Bluetooth low energy, and so on. I mean, there's like already like some features that are already prepared for some complex work. And something that you may find cool is that you can also look at the coordinate in the constellation plot like that. So you can put a mark in there, which is very cool. Also, you have like for each screen, you have some sub features. So yeah, maybe in the near future, we'll be able to see that with Harogic, because with Harogic, we still have some sub features, but probably some a bit limited for the moment compared to SignalHound. But we'll see. Maybe in the future, we'll have something very interesting, right? Another feature that also could be very helpful, especially also when you're looking to for such an attacks, you want to look at harmonics. Could be also cool to have like a list of harmonics that could be interesting to also evaluate. So like that, you may probably also extract some nice things. Something a little bit frustrating is that still on version 3.9.7, you could access to the feature, which is the phase noise here. So here you could actually measure the phase noise. But since version 4.0.0 here, you cannot access to this feature anymore, and you have to pay a license. So if you want to access this feature now, you have to pay a license of 2.5K, which is too much because you have to pay it by year. And after 10 years or 20 years, you could actually buy something quite better. So I hope this is the only feature that will have a license. Has a license. I hope that they will not put every feature and ask for a license, because I think that's probably people will actually move to another type of device. And if they want to move, they can actually move to Harogic, because after a year, if you remember my last video about Harogic, you can see that, the interface was also very basic. And now, as you can see after a year, the interface completely changed, and it's, full feature. You have digital demodulation feature, which didn't exist before, like a year ago. So there was like a lot of progress after a year. So we may also expect much more improvements after some time. And I think that's, probably they will get the same maturity as SignalHound later, or even better, because also SignalHound stayed with the same interface, which is a little bit old school compared to this one. But yeah, there was like a lot of progress on Harogic software. And not only the hardware now, is good, but also the software is becoming something. You don't have to just use the API or the raw data in order to make, to use it with your tool. You can directly use included tools with SAStudio4. All right, so I hope that you like it. And now you have also, a better overview of, which device may be the best for you. Also, I've been able to introduce you the Harogic device with new features, which are incredible. And I think that also in the future, they will introduce some new features that will just like blow your mind completely. But yeah, I have to just admit that for the PXE, a very, very mobile device, a device that you can bring everywhere, that is, kind of very compact and light. At the end, it's very practical to have this kind of feature inside. So yeah, basically, if you are doing tests outside, it's probably one of the perfect device with the screen that you may have. Unfortunately, the QC908 does not have as much features as the Harogic does, but the QC908 could be like very good also to make like some capture with a limited bandwidth, still with a high sensitivity. But for for some large bandwidth, like for example, if you want to expect like 120 or even more than 120 megahertz bandwidth, the PXE with also the digital demodulation features and also the pulse detector feature is a very nice device. The BB60D for nearly the same price cannot do the same. It's limited to 20 megahertz bandwidth, and at the end, it's kind of complicated because of course, spike is very good, but still, if I want to go outside and expect some unknown frequency outside, the sweep is better than the BB60D on Harogic. So I hope that I've been able to give you as much input to make your choice. And if you have any feedbacks, don't hesitate also to comment it out. Constructive ones. Also, don't hesitate to thumb up and subscribe to this channel for new videos. And I hope that also you will enjoy. So thank you very much for watching and see you later. Bye-bye. Thank you.